Bom, vamos lá. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to our last tasting of the year and the last tasting of our German wines. And tonight we have a white and a red wine coming from Germany. And we are expecting to be great wines, or at least typical of the grape varieties and their terroir. So, which one of you can share your comments and your thoughts on the first one, which is a white wine, by the way? Delicious for me. So, who can share your comments, your thoughts? I just opened the wine and beautiful.
Well, I have some
Anyone?
notes here. Yeah,
Good.
I can share. I can start and see the opinion of my colleagues. But so we start with the appearance.
Mm-hmm.
The intensity is pale. The color is white lemon. And on the nose, the intensity is medium plus, I would say. And I smell aromas of beer, citrus, petrol, gasoline, some flowers as well, flint. This is what I recognize here. I would say that I have a complex, amount of aromas, variety of aromas. On the palate, it's a dry wine. The acidity is high. The alcohol is medium. The body is medium. The flavor intensity is medium plus. The finish is medium. I would say it's a very good wine, and suitable for bottle aging. This is my short uh, comments, my short comments about that.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, so what's the quality?
I, my first statement here was good,
Mm-hmm.
but now I think it's very good, to tell the
Okay.
truth.
What's the grape? Okay, and then okay, so you had an overall impression of the wine. You think it's a good wine. The nose is quite complex, dry, flinty, beautiful. Would you happen to have an idea of the grape variety?
Yeah, for me,
Hmm.
it's Riesling.
Okay, what makes it? What makes it Riesling?
The characteristics of aroma with this petrol, beer,
Mm-hmm.
citrus. It's, from a cool climate.
Sure. And then okay, so you think it's Riesling, right? So the next question: is he part of the German system of Qualitätswein, or is part of the VDP system of Qualitätswein? So what sort of quality is this wine?
Look, the quality is good. It's really good. I would say that it might be a Qualitätswein. I would say um, it might be a cabinet or even a
Mm-hmm.
Spätlese.
Good. Okay. Um, would you happen to have a grasp of regionality here? Does it comes from a region, a specific
Yeah,
region?
yeah, definitely it's not from Mosel because
Okay,
Mosel,
good.
wines from Mosel are more delicate than
Mm-hmm.
this one. I would say that it comes from Palatinate or
Okay.
Hangul.
Okay.
Could be
So it could
from
be
both.
either coming from Hangul up north, or Faust, which is it's south. Because why?
Because of the intensity of fruity here,
Mm-hmm.
and the body and the fruity on the nose. I believe
Sure.
that's it.
So you're saying it's coming from a region where it has a high sunshine hours. So that's what you're
Yes,
saying. Cool.
that's it.
And then
But
I
which is the
asked
case of
you,
false for sure.
okay. So I asked
Yes.
you if you think it's a style that is more in line with the VDP producers, the VDP member producers, or the generic German um, system of quality. Because if it is a VDP producer, the new way of thinking, it's, is he a Gutswein? Is he a Nordwein? Is he a Nestalage? Is he a Groslage? So that's the moment when your theory knowledge should complement your tasting knowledge. Does it make sense? So whenever there is a question related to a country, a style, a quality, the way that you will address the question, it should be in line with the quality system. So if you are in Burgundy, is he a generic wine from Burgundy? Is he a village? Is he a premier cru? Is he a grand cru? Does it make sense? And that's something that you can only get from the VDP producers, because by knowing the German wine law, there is no vineyard quality or regionality. There is only the weight of the grape juice, which then is either Cabernet or Spätlese or Auslese or BA or TBA. So if you were to grasp, if you were to bet, is he VDP? Is he Germanic wine system? Where would you go?
Well, unfortunately, I lost what you said in the last 30 seconds because I was disconnected. Something happened here and my connection failure. So, sorry about that.
It's fine. Within the VDP, they have a classification system, which they have the Gutswein, which is the generic wine of a region. Then they have the Ortswein, which is the regional wine, is a sort of village quality. And then they have the Estelage, which is the Premier Cru. And then they have the Groslage, which is the Grand Cru. So if you were to go and follow the VDP classification system, quality level, where would you go? Where would you place the quality of this wine?
I would not go for a Gross Gewach, definitely. Hard to say it could be a VDP. It has a very good quality, but hard to say it's a VDP. I have some difficulty to say it's a VDP or just a village qualitas fine, as you said. You know,
what makes a producer a VDP member?
Those who are member of this club.
How can a producer become a member of the club?
You need to meet some standards of quality.
What's the standards?
Well, I would say some of them we can see in this wine, you know, the well balanced, you know, aromas and flavors, everything. It reflects a very good wine as well.
Good. That's the moment when your theory knowledge should be in line with your palate, your tasting ability. So the VDP laws of the membership means that requires that every producer, every member owns a Grand Cru site. So every single producer, every single member of the VDP, they have to own, not to lease, but to own a Grand Cru vineyard. This Grand Cru could be a new Grand Cru or could be a historic Grand Cru. And as the climate is changing, the VDP is looking for new Grand Cru sites. And then this producer, if a producer has a great site, a Grand Cru quality site, it has to be invited. And the producer is in charge, has to own the vineyard, manage the vineyard, and produce the grapes and produce the wine out of using grapes of that vineyard. Once the producer, it's a member of the VDP, they can buy in grapes, they can lease other vineyards, they can source grapes from all around, and they can even make wines outside the VDP using the German qualification, which is the case of Ernest Lusen, for example, from Dr. Lusen. So he used grapes, he used his grapes or buying grapes, and he makes wines outside of the VDP qualification. Okay, he does it. And then if you are a producer, if you have grapes that are not from your best, your Grand Cru site, maybe you have grapes that are classified as a Estalaghi or which is a Premier Cru, or maybe you have grapes that has a sense of regionality. It comes from a specific region and therefore a village within the region. Therefore, it's an Ortswein, or you can even buy in grapes that are from the region but are not from the best quality sites, and then you sell as a Gutswein. So it is important that you understand the system, because once you understand the system, you can classify the wine within the system. And if you were to classify, so let's go to the Burgundy classification of system. If you were to classify it, Grand Cru, Premier Cru, Village, or generic level within the region, where would you go and why? So imagine that you are in, you said Fals. So if you are in Fals, is it Grand Cru? Is it Premier Cru? Is it Village? Or it's just a generic wine coming from Fals, which means it's a Gutswein? So that's the question. If you were to make a classification.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, but Thiago, I cannot classify the wine at all, but there are some things that that I picked that will give me the sense of a very good wine, because the body was very impressive. It has much more than a regular low-level Riesling, and also the spicy finish that gives a lot of elegance. So I can't say it's a Grand Cru or Premier Cru, but it has some characteristics that make it the wine in a higher level. Of, and I think it has a off dry. I disagree with him. It's an off dry wine, but it's very elegant. It has a lot of acidity. So it stands above the regular Riesling, but I can't say, oh, it's a Grand Cru. Go ahead, Elisa.
Okay. What I found different than from what José Eduardo said, I also felt in the aromas some dried hay and some tropical fruits, like pineapple. And honey. I agree with Ligia. I think it's medium dry. I even thought about medium sweet because it has a high acidity, but I'm not familiar with this style. So I would go for medium dry, to be safe. And it has a very sharp acidity. And I felt flavors of lemon, lime, and green apple. I agree that it's from a cool climate with a lot of sun. It's sunny because you can feel the ripeness of the fruit, even though it has very high acidity. And I think it's a very good wine. I think the body is medium plus. It has a lot of concentration of both flavor and body. So I think it's a very good wine. It's really elegant. And so I would go for VDP, definitely.
Okay. So the majority of producers from VDP, they tend to produce wines that are dry. And if you are in a cool climate, being able to produce a dry wine makes you stand out. And besides, most of the producers, most of the consumers outside Germany, they favor a dry wine. Within Germany, off dry and sweet wines, it's common. It's part of the culture. It's part of the wine consumption culture, and also food and wine pairing. So it's very traditional for hundreds of years. So it's not that simple to stop producing off-dry wines and medium sweet or sweet wines and just favor the dry style. Besides, I believe, I'm not sure here, but I think that 70% of the whole production of German wines is consumed within Germany. They consume a lot more than what they export. That's what I think it is. I could be wrong here. But I think that it is a wine that has at least medium plus in terms of aromas, high at the very beginning, but then medium plus. But then the wine is not fading away, but it's becoming less intense. It was intense. It's not as intense as it was. And then the first thing that showed me was this sort of tertiary aromas such as petrol, you know, the gasoline, all this sort of crispy and sort of nutty hints. That was the first thing that I got. And then the citrusy, you know, the flintiness, the smokiness. So I had these very mature aromas that comes from bottle aging, and primary aromas very citrusy, intense. And then in between, I got this tropical notes, which is the peach, the pineapple. And the tropicalness brings me to two regions. And I think that, Eduardo, you are very, very clever and very, very sharp in saying either Faust or either Hangul, because those are very two regions that produce this style. But my understanding is that the Hangul often makes wines that are rather more intense, as opposed to more intense, more vertical, but very intense. And the Faust, they tend to make wines that are more broader in palate, very, very peachy and more broader, but not as intense of acidity, vertical as Hangul. But I think this is a dry wine with medium body and sort of 12% alcohol. I could be wrong. It could be 12.5. I don't get it off dry.
Let me ask you one thing. I agree on the alcohol. I think it's low. When we are evaluating a wine in the tasting, and if the question states that it's a German wine, because they have a different classification to dryness that from the EU, because it takes into consideration also the acidity, right? So I think it does have more than 5 grams of sugar per liter. So it's not dry wine, but if it has a higher acidity, and it has a high acidity, we could have a wine that would be off dry in the European system, but still dry in the German system. Couldn't we?
I think that, you know, that Feinherb style that we tasted, it was a little bit sugary. So that was the Halbtrocken sort of thing. I think if they are going to ask you about the classification of the sugar, they are trying to give you a wine that should be easy for you to justify the amount of sugar and the style. And I think that the question is more about the style than the classification.
Yes, but when we are tasting and we have to describe the wine, we have to say it's dry, off dry, medium dry, medium sweet.
I would use the balance between sugar and acidity to classify that, as opposed to use the labeling term, because easily a Feinherb, it could, depending on the acidity, it could easily be seen as an off dry or maybe medium sweet. It could easily be seen that medium dry, I meant. So off dry and medium dry, depending on the producer, depending on the style of sugar. But it's more about the sugar as opposed to the intensity of aromas and flavors. So a faint herb is often a very easy, simple, aromatic, no,
Yes.
how can I say, no aging potential.
Yeah, but this wine here is clearly a very good wine. It's, as
yeah.
Ligia said, it's not a regular Riesling,
Yeah.
you know, it can be
It's the other side of
Grand Cru
Riesling, yeah.
wine. Yes, it's the other side of Riesling, exactly. So it could be slightly off dry. Also because I think that if the fruit was so ripe and it has 12% alcohol, it has low alcohol, very ripe fruit.
Yeah.
I think you must have some residual sugar here. And
For
when
sure.
you taste it, the kind of body it has, even having such a sharp acidity, this feeling, you know, it's not alcohol because it's not high alcohol. So it must be sugar.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I
But
think
for me,
it's really, you know,
on the edge,
between
yeah,
dry and off dry in the edge. Yes.
Yeah. But I think the fact that the wine has high acidity and it finishes on the fruity side, it doesn't have much sweetness. I would bet, I would rather sit on a fence of is a dry wine. You know, it's more about how you argue. Again, when you are going to describe a style. And the majority of the wines in Germany, they don't have, if they are outside the VDP system, they don't go into 12% alcohol, because they are on less favorable vineyards. Again, your theory knowledge meeting your tasting knowledge. So because of the majority of producers outside the German, the VDP classification system, membership, they are on a lower quality. Therefore, they tend to make wines that has high acidity naturally, less phenolic maturity, and residual sugar. And they tend to be more of a simple quality, simple style, more dependent on sugar. And they often use Cabernet, Auchlase, Spetales. But when you perceive that you are facing a dry wine,
a high quality wine, a really high.
You should, when you think about the alcohol, you should think of high quality. And that's something new for Germany. Not new, but it's a way that you should, well, it's 12% or plus, medium alcohol, it's dry, it has a very good intensity of aromas and flavors. Therefore, I could be tasting a wine that is part of the VDP system. Where am I here on quality level? The dryness and the intensity is something that should lead you to that style. It does not mean that a VDP producer cannot produce a sweet wine. They can do, and they often do, and the majority does. But if you are facing, which could be quite tricky, if you're facing a dry wine, it's very likely that it's part of the VDP. And if it's part of the VDP, that's the moment that you use the classification quality system. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, we tasted a wine coming from Dr. Lusen, which is a producer, which is a member of the VDP, but the wine that we tasted wasn't a VDP quality level. Remember? So, and it was more reliant on sugar for the sweetness. So that's a very way of comparing things. And okay, so it was, I think it's a dry wine, 12% alcohol, high acidity. That's where I would go. Medium intensity of flavors, and probably medium or medium minus concentration of flavor. And think the depth of flavors, and think how long does it last? Think what flavors can you taste it, and how long does it last? It's very citrus, limes and lemons and pineapple, peach, and then it goes away. It doesn't last much longer. It's not that long. It's more the acidity side of it, as opposed to the the length of flavors, the concentration of flavors. And because of that, I go into good as opposed to very good. But I know that I'm not good, it's not good considering German wines. It's good considering a VDP producer of wine. And if it's good, where am I within the classification system? Where would you go? Is it a Großlage, Esterlage, Ortswein, or Gutswein? That cannot be acceptable here. No? Okay. Shall we review the wine? Yeah. So yeah, we got the ego here and the grapes and the grape. And then we So we have a producer coming from Hangel, which is called the Baron Kipphausen. And so it's a Riesling coming from Hangel. It's a dry wine, so it's a Qualitätsweintrocken. And it is 2019. So again, for 2019 to be that forward in a way of maturing. So it has matured quite quickly. So it means that it's a way of understanding that the wine is at the peak of consumption, although it has high acidity. So, you know, the high acidity can keep the wine for a much longer period, but it does not mean that the wine will keep in a very high quality level for much longer. And then when you get into the classification system, we can see right here that the wine is Gutswein. So let me so yeah. So yes, so it is a VDP Gutswein, which means it's a generic wine. It's a wine that comes from the whole of the Hangel region, as opposed to the villages, the little villages that you will find within the Hangel, which is a quite big area producing grapes. So yes, so for me, this tasting was more about perceiving quality, and you all classified as very good, and I think it is a very good quality of wine. But if you were to talk about the style, or if you were to talk about qualification, or if you were to talk about within the VDP system, that's the sort of way of thinking that should be very clear to you, or you should know other ways to analyze the wine. And it's important to understand that within Germany, you have two classification systems: the German wine law and the VDP, which is something totally different. The VDP is within the German wine law. Okay, so a VDP producer can use both systems, and they can label any way they want. But whenever you face a dry wine with medium alcohol, 12%, and high acidity, think again, what's the quality? Is it VDP? What's the classification system? Where am I? And Jose Eduardo, you are quite right to think about the intensity of the flavors, the peachiness, the tropicalness, and consider one over another. And I think that if you were to place somewhere within Germany and say, you know, that's coming from Pfalz, and although you're wrong, once you say, you know, because of the tropicalness and the peachy and so on and so on and so on, that place is in a region such as, because of this, and that, and therefore you still have points together. If you were to say, well, it's coming from high Hass, and they probably say, no, sorry, you know.
Okay.
And that's okay. Shall we move on to the next wine?
Last question, Thiago.
Sure.
So regarding the aging, okay, it's till 2019.
19. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's okay. But would you say that you can open this bottle of wine within 2 or 3 years and the quality will stay good?
Okay. Well, the way the WCT consider the bottles, the WCT view of aging is if the wine has potential to gain complexity, to get better, then it should bottle aging. I don't think that this is a wine that will benefit. I think the wine is drinking really well now. I think that the wine is, it was made to drink young. It's a generic wine. The grapes are coming from the region. So I think because of that, it's a wine that is drinking well now. So drink now, not suitable for bottle aging. Why? Because it doesn't have the depth, the finish, the concentration, and the wine is already quite forward, meaning evolved, matured. And because of that, it's drinking deliciously now, deliciously well now.
Clear. Perfect. Thank you.
Hello, you can't hear you.
No, it's
No?
okay. It's just that I think I would gladly buy another 4 or 5 bottles to see how it ages.
Yeah, no, I think it's very, very delicious. Ooh, it's 12% alcohol. Beautiful.
Yes,
Ooh,
it is.
thanks God, I got something right. I think it is delicious, but I think if it was a wine that is outside the VDP, there should be far too much sugar. Maybe we wouldn't enjoy as much as we are enjoying now. And besides, we tasted a wine like this, 2 wines like this, which I presume that most of you didn't enjoy as much as we are enjoying now. But again, it's just Riesling being Riesling in different quality levels. As the quality goes up, it delivers a lot more when compared to the older style that we tasted last session. So how about the next wine? Who can help me here? Anybody?
If nobody wants, I can. Okay.
Go ahead, Alicia.
Okay. It's a pale ruby with medium intensity of aromas and aromas of mainly of red fruits like strawberry, red cherries, and red currant, but also has some grasses, some herbal aromas, and a hint of vanilla, and a very earthy aroma that goes around all the other aromas. It's a dry wine with a medium plus acidity. It has a lot of acidity and low tannins, but the tannins are smooth. It's medium alcohol, medium body. It doesn't have a lot of body, and a medium plus flavor intensity of even spice. The first thing I felt was some pepper, some white pepper, and grass and some clove, and at the end the cranberry, strawberry, red currant, but the spice and the grass notes comes first, and it has a medium plus finish, and for me it's not suitable for bottle aging. Despite I wrote a long text, despite the seed, it lacks a robust fruit structure that would make it benefit from evolution. And it's a very good wine. It's balanced. The balance in it with acidity and tannins are really remarkable, and the tannins are soft. It shows that earth and bastus notes that gives elegance, and also has a very interesting spice finish. That's why I thought it's a very good wine. the fruit is there, but it's not the main characteristic of the wine.
Very
But
good.
yeah, that's
okay. So what's the grape variety then?
It's a Pinot Noir with some hints of earth notes and the red fruits. But it's
I
not.
didn't get it. What's the grape variety here?
It's a Pinot Noir. Oh, it's
Yeah.
Spätburgunder.
Ah, good. Okay.
It's
They don't Pinot Noir in Germany. They do Spätburgunder. Okay. So Spätburgunder. What makes it Spätburgunder? Why not Lamberger? Why not Frühburgunder? Why not Saint Laurent?
The notes and the red fruits.
What else? Again, that's the moment when the varietal character should be used to justify your answer. If you are saying, okay, it is a Spätburgunder, and I mean, if you can spell correctly, use a Spätburgunder. If you can't, Pinot Noir, it's fine. It's a Pinot Noir coming from Germany. It's fine. You're not going to be punished, okay? But if you can, that's the moment that you need to impress the examiner. Spätburgunder, great, amazing. What makes it Spätburgunder? Any question here? And anybody can help?
Well, I could not agree more with Lydia. Tasting notes, you know, and when I see these tasting notes, it comes to my mind Pinot Noir, you know, with red fruit, with earthy, you know, some smoke here, some forest floor, in my opinion, as well. I'm not sure about meat. This is something that I have some difficulty to smell, but perhaps meat here as well. But it's a clear Pinot Noir. Also about the color, you know, and if you combine the flavor, the aroma, and the color, it addresses me to Pinot Noir.
Perfect. Yes, you're correct. And that's the moment when you need to use the same structure which Marcus, another student, is using. He has a structure of answers for every single grape variety. So whenever he needs to argument for quality or argument for grape variety is already made, so he just adapt. So what makes it Spätburgunder as opposed to Frühburgunder? Both has, Frühburgunder is Madeleine Royale. So Frühburgunder, both of them, well, both of them has high acidity. Both of them has low tannins. But quality-wise, Spätburgunder is broad in aromas, broad in flavors, a lot more texture. Frühburgunder makes a rather much simple wine. It has less intensity, less aromatic. The tannins are rather rustic as opposed to silky as the potential of Spätburgunder. So once you understand them, you can compare and contrast. Once you know the grape varieties, or do you need to know the grape varieties? Once you read, you go back into D1, that is a characteristic of major grape varieties, becomes a lot simpler. And if you do an Excel sheet of the grape varieties of every single region, the traditional grape varieties of the regions, we can compare and contrast them. So why Pinot Noir? It has all the characteristics. Yes, you are correct. But what makes a Pinot Noir Pinot? High acidity, pale or medium color. It could be either red berries or black berries. If it has a black berries, it's coming from a moderate climate, which is not very favorable for Pinot Noir, but there's a few Pinot Noirs, Brazil, for example, Chile, for example, that has a moderated climate with a cooling influence, that has a rather more black berries as opposed to red berries. Okay, the high acidity always. If you're coming, you could have low tannins or moderated tannins. Here we have a more lower quality tannins. And why do they have they decided to extract less tannins? Because it's coming from a cool climate. By extracting less tannins, it makes a wine more approachable at a younger age, right? So that's one way. Cool climate, you don't want to extract a lot of hard tannins or harsh tannins. Good. Also, there is an important, very important thing here. It's about the texture. The Pinot Noir has the ability of producing wines that has a more rounded, rather silky, soft texture. Go back and taste the wine. It's so silk, it's so soft, so juicy texture. And that's very Pinot. And that's a Pinot that has a lot of sunshine influence and some bottle aging influence. Why bottle aging? Well, because Ligia was able to pick up a earthy note, an earthy flavor to the wine. And Eduardo was able to pick up a sort of a spicy and at the same time some leathery. And that is in line with Pinot Noir when Pinot Noir ages. Ligia may call it earthy, I may call it mushroomy. And it's okay. It's the same thing, you know, mushroomy and earthy, it's all in line. And leathery, it's all in line with this silky texture. So it's all same thing. If you were to taste side by side Lamberger, it doesn't have the same intensity. It's very fruity and no tannins. And the acidity is very integrated. Fruit Burgunder, it's amazing, but it's very gamey, very Pinot Noir, Gamay-like. It's not as broad as Pinot. And the other, like a Portuguesier, it doesn't have the same intensity. It's very intense. It's very dark. So if you know you're in Germany, it's very dark, very, very dark and very animal. The aroma is quite animal. That's Portuguesier. So it's different grape variety. So once you know the three major grape varieties, you write down, make a table, an Excel spreadsheet, then you compare and contrast. It's easy to argument. But hey, it's Pinot. And I think it's medium plus intensity of aromas. Go back into the wine and realize that the wine wants to be aromatic. It's so fruity, isn't it? It's so tutti frutti, so strawberries, raspberries, cherries, red currants and stuff. I disagree with the vanilla, but I agree with the earthiness. I agree with this mushroomy. I agree with the leathery. When you mentioned vanilla, I smell like, you know, when you're doing a red fruit reduction, you know, you put the red fruit into the pan, put some sugar, like a syrupy. You know, when you're coffee, and then you have a syrupy, like a medicine, aquele xarope de fruta vermelha. That's exactly the same aroma that I get here, which for me shows that the wine is either coming from a moderated climate or the wine is actually coming from a mature state. Because once the fruit develops, it turns wild berries into fresh berries, or the fresh berries into a more cooked or preserved. And I think that it's what we are getting here. As I taste the wine, dry, medium body, medium alcohol, I bet 12. I could be wrong. High alcohol, low tannins. I would rather use the extreme, the low side of it. Medium intensity, medium minus finish, very strawberry. It has a sort of a spice hint, like a cinnamon, like a cloves sort of thing. And very soft, silky texture. Very good Pinot Noir. Very good Pinot Noir. But it's a maturing Pinot Noir. Hey, where is Pinot Noir grown within Germany? If you had to place somewhere within Germany, where would you go?
I would go for R, number one.
Yeah.
The best from Germany, or one of the best from Germany,
Yeah.
or even Baden.
Okay. And Baden. Where else Pinot Noir is grown?
I think
Well,
Württemberg also, no? It has some red. Württemberg.
Yeah, Württemberg. Yeah. Sure. Where else?
in Pfalz as well.
Pfalz. Where else? You need sunshine. Yes.
And Thiago, at first, I didn't, uh, I didn't think really that it was a very good wine. I felt the tannins to be just ripe, almost unripe, kind of coarse. And what I think it was I think it was the influence of the temperature, because since it's a very warm, hot day in Curitiba, I did put it in the fridge for a while, and I think that was it, because now I am noticing more complexity of flavors. At first, I only felt licorice and cherry and some mint. And then I started noticing these herbaceous and some sweet spices. And red currant was the first thing I felt in my mouth, but I also felt some charred wood, So I think the use of wood here is a little too aggressive,
Okay.
And but I agree now that it is a good wine. It's a well-balanced wine. I later felt the mushrooms, fresh mushrooms, not dried mushrooms, fresh mushrooms. And I think it's evolving well in the glass. But at first I really had doubts. I think the temperature made a lot of difference.
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of difference. So if you are tasting wines and maybe you are uncertain, again, I was in the south of Brazil running level 3. What I did mention to my students for the examination, if they are unsure, if they tasted the wines too much, put them out, get some water, rinse the glass, and ask for more wine. And I'll pour you some more wine. Sometimes it's important for you to start again from nothing, from the scratch. So as you pour the wines away and ask for more wines, it becomes a lot more clear. So the wines could be pour them to you either by country, variety, or style. I think a wine like this easily tells you, as a banker, I'm Pinot Noir from the cool climate. But among other wines, New World, like a Santa Barbara Pinot Noir, or
it's completely different.
They may be show a lot more structure, a lot more intensity, or even a Premier Cru from Burgundy, a lot more vibrancy, and you may dismiss the quality of this wine. And here, it's all about what you said: the texture, the intensity, the lightness, the liveliness, the beauty, the flow, the integration, the roundness, and the subtleness. This wine is very subtle in everything: the aromatics, the flavors, the texture. So you have to be very careful, because once you taste a wine that is very big side by side, you may underappreciate this wine. So, it could be tricky. And I hope that a wine like this doesn't fall into the exam, because that could be very tricky. But anyway, would you like to see the wine? Or is there anything else that you would like to comment? Why this is not R?
Because the production is not that big and it's very difficult to find. It's not valid anymore. Okay.
No valid. I think they are. They have a lot more intensity in the middle of the palate. The acidity is more or less the same, and the tannins are quite big. They have more sunshine hours. They get the day and the afternoon sun exposure. Therefore, they have more tannins. They make much bigger wines. R is like a pommard. If you compare to Burgundy, there's pommard. R, it's the pommard of Burgundy. Big, intense, and it needs time. Okay? So what is not false? False tends to make wines that are more rounder, simpler, easy drinking, easy pleasing, much higher volume. It's not big, it's not on the slopes. They can have more flat vineyards, and therefore they tend to make wines on a more of village quality level. It could be the I don't know, I would say, if I was to compare it to Burgundy, Nuit Saint-Georges. It would be the Nuit Saint-Georges, more on a fruity style, more, a much bigger village.
And why would you say this is a Pinot from Germany and not Burgundy?
Why? Very good question. Germany overall, they tend to focus on the fruit and the purity. Did you get much of oak? Not much. They tend to use more of an old oak, which is more of a vessel where they place the wine there. Once they finish fermentation, they keep the wine there until they can sell the bottle, or they have room or space to bottle the wines and stuff. It's not about the oak. So am I saying that the wines, they don't see new oak? Yes, some producers, they do. Like, for example, in Hangel, there's a producer called August Kessler, and I love him. Oh, the Pinots are amazing. I mean, the Pinot Noir, the Spätburgunder, the Premier Cru or the Grand Cru, I was looking online and it cost about £120. I mean, that's off my league. I mean, it's so pricey. But the first time I tasted wines, I mean, I was like, oh my God. I mean, Burgundy, I mean, the quality, the intensity, that in Hangel, it's amazing. 400 bottles, 600 bottles. I mean, that's nothing. They can't even export the wines because they sell everything. So it's 120 euros if you want to buy. They sell locally. There are not many bottles. They're beautiful. But it could be easily Baden or Württemberg. And Württemberg, they're quite similar in latitude. They're quite similar. What's the difference between one and the other? I don't know. But there is something that I can explain. When I think of wines that are coming from Hangel or R, they have this high acidity, but a lot of intensity on the backbone. They have more flesh to the wine. They have more intensity of flavors and intensity of aromas, and they're more like a Grand Cru. And when I get wines from Baden and Württemberg, they don't have the same intensity and concentration of flavors. As if the grapes were not concentrating enough phenolics to have a depth of concentration, which is what we get here. The wine is beautiful. It has maturity. It has integrated acidity. It's so round. It's beautiful now, but it doesn't have the intensity of a Grand Cru or Premier Cru, which is what we get from the northern regions, such as R and Hangul. One of the reasons of going down. But am I saying that there is no Grand Cru in Baden and Württemberg? No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that overall, the wines are much riper, much rounder. The acidity is much rounder, which is the case here. Shall we review the wine? Because I don't remember where am I, if I'm in Baden or Württemberg or even Faust. But I know there's not for an R because there is none in Brazil available to buy. But hey, VDP producer. Ooh. So yeah, the Spätburgunder Trocken, it's a bio event, so it's organic. Where is it coming from? So the Grand Cru here is called Berenberg. I don't know what's the region here. Spätburgunder Trocken. So if I'm not mistaken, this producer, it is from Württemberg, but I could be mistaken. But nevertheless, let me go online. Let me go online just to be 100% sure of the region. And let me find this producer. And apparently it is, yes, Württemberg, yes. And the region within Württemberg, it's Verenberg. It's 100% Pinot Noir. Well done. At 6 months in large oak vessels or wood vessels for 6 months. And the classification here, the classification of the quality is VDP Gutswein. Again, it's a generic wine within a region. So yeah, that's what I got. That's what I get from the Vindane, the importer of this beautiful Pinot Noir, which I think is drinking really well.
So quality-wise, both wines have the same level.
Gutswein. But interesting, I think that the Pinot is delivering a lot more than the Riesling. When you think on the finish, when you think of the intensity of flavors, when you think of the roundness, the balance. But you're right, both wines have the same quality level, sort of generic. And again, I think that it's more about, you can have that as long as you have better selection of fruit, better winemaking techniques, and you can still make a better wine, a level up of the same region or of the same classification. I think you can still do that. It all depends on the grape selection and the winemaking technique, as you know. Make sense? Any more questions here? No?
Oh, great selection of wines, and you finish well with the last wine taste of the year with those very good wines from Germany. Congratulations, Thiago.
That's true.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very
you.
good experience.
I think for this box, when I was putting them together, the idea was to have wines that they represented Germany for the climatic condition, cool climate wines, the diversity of grapes, and diversity of quality. When you are tasting wines from cool climate influence, sometimes it's very easy for you to be lost on quality because the sugar. So you taste sugar and think, oh, it's low quality. And no, we had a Riesling from Dr. Luzen, which was beautiful, amazing. And we had a wine that had a little bit of sugar, but it wasn't that great. So managing the sugar levels and be able to see beauty and balance and everything, it's amazing. And even within the sugar style, you can still see regionality, which was the case again of the Ernest Luzen, the Dr. Luzen wine that we tasted coming from Mosel. I mean, that was a beautiful wine. We are using some Corson, and that's a beautiful wine. So the idea of this tasting was to put it together some grape varieties that it's grown within Germany. And we are always thinking of Riesling and Pinot Noir or Spätburgunder, as opposed of thinking of the other grape varieties that is grown, it's common, and WSET could easily put them into the examination, and we should be able to identify. And they are very pure, when you think of German wines, they're very pure. They tend not to use yeast contact. They tend not to use oak or the influence of oak. What they often use is bottle aging. So they bottle the wines quite young to benefit from bottle aging. So the consumer will have a wine that has more integration and so on. So I hope you have enjoyed, had fun with those two wines. I think the Pinot Noir is tasting beautifully. And also I think that the Riesling is quite quite interesting, quite fun, quite authentic from a very premium region within Germany, very prestigious. And yeah, I hope to see you soon on the next box next year, once we finish the D5, once we pass over the D5. So probably by February.
I learned a lot in this box. Thank you, Thiago.
You're welcome. I hope you enjoy the wines and the gathering of the information.
Yes.
So thank you very much. And I see you all pretty soon. Yeah, enjoy. Cheers. And
Cheers.
yeah, to 2022.
Yep.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Guys. Goodbye.